Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. How's your Monday? Yeah, mine too. It's like, is it Friday yet? No, bro, it's still Monday. We haven't even got out of Monday yet. I feel you. I feel you. We're not having it as bad as our friends over at Tesla showrooms around the country. They seem to be the latest target. It's so interesting to see how this man in the public consciousness, Elon Musk, has turned from the greatest thing in the world into Lex Luthor. And of course, it's all over politics, but here to make some sense of it, my first guest, Raven Harrison's back on the James Show. Hey, Raven, how's it going?
Hey, James. Happy Monday.
Did you raid any Tesla showrooms over the weekend?
No, but we have a Tesla, so I invite the I invite the crazy. Bring it. It's a great car. We love it.
See, don't you find it interesting though that for I don't know, like the first decade we all knew this guy's name. He was associated with environmentalism and global warming and electric cars, and Solar City was even part of his profile, and he was adored by the same people who think he's literally Hitler now.
Well, correct. And that just goes to show you the scathing hypocrisy of what they talk about. All the people, all that green new stuff went out the window as soon as they couldn't control his politics. And it was the same thing with President Trump. When he was a Democrat, everybody loved him. Everybody wanted to be at his parties. Everybody wanted to be close to him. Everybody wanted a favor from him. And what did Barack Obama say? The American dream was to be Donald Trump. And then the second he said, well, I don't really like how this is going. I'm going in as a Republican. All of a sudden he became the Antichrist overnight.
Well, you could say that about Joe Rogan, too. He went through the same thing, and he didn't actively seek to leave Team Blue and come to Team Red. It's almost as if he was pushed.
He was canceled. And that's the problem with the Democrats. They claim to be protecting democracy, but they're going to cancel anybody who doesn't think like them and act like them. We're all for democracy as long as we agree with it. We're all for free speech, as long as we can control it. And who says what? And we're all for rights and freedoms as long as, they apply to us and not you. I mean, they have been a walking hypocrisy for a while, but now we're starting to see it. And if they think they're going to win people back, has that ever worked, James, in the history of ever? Has anybody ever gone, you know what? I was thinking about leaving the Democrats, but because they're going to call me names and hurt my feelings, I think I'll stay. I mean, they are ridiculous.
Well, Raven, I think that's why a lot of people stick around, especially if you live in one of these hyper blue bubbles. Like if you live within walking distance of this studio, probably 90% of your friends are Team Blue, and you will be ostracized. You will be called names. And I think that does work on a lot of people. They don't want to lose all their friends. They don't want to be seen as a literal Hitler by people that they admire and hang out with or related to or their coworkers.
Well, if they're that easy, then I would submit that you don't really have friends, okay? You have opportunists. And it takes courage to be disliked. It really does. I mean, look at what Elon's mom is getting. I just saw on X, she just got the hate. How do you feel knowing you raised the biggest POS in history? And I'm like, it's crazy where people are. They're so consumed with hate that this is it.
Okay.
They're just
couple of juxtapositions I think that you'll appreciate. Number one, Elon Musk. He's the biggest POS ever. The guy who made electric cars, the only person who's made electric cars profitable, sending rockets into space. He's boring holes. He's got the Starlink. He's doing like 10 awesome things, Neuralink. But George Floyd's a hero. That's a beautiful juxtaposition.
That's how they work. And again, I think President Trump said it perfectly in the State of the Union. He said, there's nothing you can do to make these people happy. Literally, Elizabeth Warren, I think about 8 years ago, was screaming about how it's important to have accountability.
It just happens.
And now, Pocahontas, is accountability. And now that we're investigating how she's worth $100 million, how her net worth ballooned from 67 million to 100 million. Now, all of a sudden, anybody who tries to look into that is a racist and is a bully. And I mean, it's just unbelievable watching them rally. We didn't elect Elon. Well, nobody elected Gates. Nobody elected Soros. Nobody elected Fauci. Nobody elected all these other people who have had such say either, but they didn't have a problem then. So again, this is the typical hypocrisy of the left. Do as I say, not as I do. Rules for thee, but not for me. And people are fed up with it, and they're digging that hole deeper every day, James.
All right, so let's walk down the next step, because I'm going to ask you what I'm about to ask callers for the next segment, the people listening right now. So if all these people are attacking Elon Musk or Tesla because they have a beef with Elon Musk politically, that means they are using violence, property damage, intimidation, coercion for a political cause. That's literally the definition of terrorism. So are these people, by definition, domestic terrorists?
Yes. You know me, James. I don't mince my words. And again, that's what, you have the right to peacefully protest. But again, these people are blocking. I have seen video. And again, Democrats are masters of don't believe what you see with your own eyes. I saw people having their windows, trying to break the windows of a cyber truck that was driving, jumping on top of people's electric cars. And, the protest to me was it Sheryl Crow, who wanted to spectacularly show that she was donating, giving her Tesla away. I don't want it anymore. And she gave it to NPR, which is already publicly funded. And she already paid for it.
That's funny.
So
the better one was the AOC turned in her Tesla and went and got a Volkswagen. It's like AOC,
the Hitler mobile.
Yeah, right. You know who
Exactly.
started Volkswagen, right?
Is Hitler.
Yeah.
And I mean, these people are just so crazy. But if they didn't have a double standard, they wouldn't have any at all. And that's where we just have to kind of ride through it. We sat through 4 years of a guy with dementia who, didn't know where he was, and them protecting this as normal. And now they're having their meltdown, and it's glorious.
Tell me how your campaign's going.
Campaign is going great. We have our first big kickoff this Thursday, and it's going to be spectacular. But Patriots, we need them to write checks. James, we got to get there at Raven Harrison for Congress. If you want a better government, then you need to be bought by we the people and not the lobbyists.
When do we write checks anymore? Just go on your phone and do a couple thumb pushes and squeeze off a few bucks for good old Raven.
I'm that old. I'm check old.
Right.
So, yes.
Literally, when was the last time you wrote a check?
Me personally, a couple of weeks ago, I just bought a house.
Oh, okay. Well, that counts. What about before that? Because I'm trying to think of when the last time I wrote a check was, and I really can't remember. I think I had to write one like
before that,
3 years
I'd be
ago.
hard pressed to find it, but I did recently because they only wanted the deposit in check form, so we keep one dusted off just in case.
Man, that just accidentally blew my mind. When was the last time you wrote a check? 800-288-9. No, you don't have to do that. I want to ask the question saying, thank you, Raven. I want to ask the same questions I was asking Raven. Tesla showrooms being targeted nationwide. This is violence, intimidation, property damage for a political cause. Doesn't that are these people terrorists? Are they domestic terrorists? Because if they are, that makes a whole another set of dominoes fall down. If these people are domestic terrorists, then should they be arrested and charged with domestic terrorism charges? Should they be sent to Guantanamo? The groups organizing, they're setting these up or funding them. Are these now terrorist organizations? Is Act Blue now akin to the Mexican cartels and Al Qaeda? See, it's easy to say that, but I don't know if that works out so well in practice. Let's talk about that. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What's up, sports fans? James Parker here for the Prize Picks app. And if you're already watching sports, if you already have your sports mastered, if you know your players and you know your team inside and out, why don't you turn that knowledge into a little bit of extra spending money with the Prize Picks app? It's just America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. That's all. Over 10 million active users. That's all. Over $1 billion in prizes awarded already. That's all. A little chunk of that came to me here. But look, it has more than just your regular old football, baseball, basketball. They go down in the college level. They do women's college basketball. They have Was this Call of Duty? Are you serious? Yeah, they have Call of Duty. They have esports. So look, whatever you're into, sports or esports, remember the Prize Picks app. You set up a lineup of 2 to 6 players. You can win up to 1,000 times your money. And you can also take advantage of the new stars pickups, or if you're really sort of sentimental there, you can get Luca. You can still have Luca on your team. Find out what he's going to be scheduled to do next, and then just pick more or less on a stat. You get a lineup of 2 to 6 players, you're good to go. Download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP to get $50 with your first $5 play. That's promo code WBAP. And when it says Luka Doncic 24.5 points tonight against Brooklyn, I would say choose more. Download the Prize Picks app. Promo code WBAP. Prize Picks. Run your game. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I think this is a much bigger story than a lot of people are giving it credit for, and for obvious reasons here. But Tesla attacks, it's not just their showrooms. You've seen, if you've been scrolling through social media, you've probably seen this already. But if you're not terminally online like me, there's been a lot of people occupying Tesla showrooms, protesters going in there and chanting and singing, and we were playing some of that last week. But now that it's continued, there's an obvious pattern that implies some level of organization. There's some people who are supporting this, promoting this, getting people out. It's not people didn't just randomly all show up holding signs and singing the same song. There's a level of organization to this, and it looks people's right to do so. It's not their right to go damage property, or it's not their right to just go trespass and interrupt business. But up to that point, you have your own opinion. It disagrees with mine. That's fine until you start destroying property, until you go spray paint some random dude's Cybertruck just because you hate Elon Musk and he's literally Hitler. So we run into a few different problems here, just sort of culturally speaking, with this line of stories, because it's showrooms, it's people's private Cybertrucks are getting spray painted on and vandalized and whatnot. And if you go search through this pattern in the news, let's plug in some problems here. Number one, the definition of terrorism is violence or intimidation for a political cause. And so, I know that sounds really broad, but it kind of fits. What's going on here? Okay, so if they are terrorists in nature, are we overusing that term? Okay, if this was people we politically agreed with, would we still use the term domestic terrorism? If this was people on Team Red, would we be so quick to label them domestic terrorists? Well, let's think about that. What has happened in the past when the opposite's gone down? When a group of Team Red supporters went and vandalized a business that was perceived as Team Blue, or real or perceived as Team Blue. I don't know. You got any examples of that? I can kind of think of a couple years ago when Bud Light ticked off a lot of people with a woke campaign. I did notice like Kid Rock and a few other people bought Bud Light and they shot their own can. So they're not vandalizing anyone else's property. They're not going into a showroom and interrupting business. They're not breaking the windows at the business. They didn't go to the nearest Bud Light distributor and start chucking rocks at the windows. But there's even a more perfect metaphor than this. That's what's so amazing about this story. It's for most of your life, most of his life, Elon Musk has been identified with the Democrats. He's been on Team Blue. In fact, it was just until 4 or 5 years ago that you even saw this new side of Elon Musk. The dark MAGA is what he became. But it was a slow transition that we all just saw move in slow motion in front of our eyes over the course of about the last decade. And so we actually know Tesla used to be perceived as a Team Blue company. So we don't even have to have the hypothetical. You already know. Garrett already knows. When Tesla was perceived as Team Blue, were they being received with politically motivated vandalism? No, they were not. So I don't know if we even have a comparison here. I don't even know if we can play the whataboutism game or the both sides game. Because in this case, there's not a both sides. There's a lot of other companies that are perceived as Team Blue. Team Right people, a bunch of gravy seals don't go show up and chucking rocks at them or spray painting their windows, do they? Or am I missing something here? Do I just have a hole in my memory? Am I not thinking of a good example? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I know a few of you people listen just to prove me wrong. This is your chance. What am I missing here? What is the right-wing equivalent of what we're seeing happening to Tesla? And also X. X went down for a little bit earlier today. They're saying it's a cyber attack. We don't know the motivation, but if that's politically motivated, same thing applies. For most of Twitter's existence, it wasn't owned by Elon Musk. It was owned by Jack Dorsey and a few other people. Was there ever a politically motivated cyber attack when it was perceived as a Team Blue platform? So now we're getting into some interesting territory here. We have some attacks that are politically motivated and it meets the definition of terrorism. But I roll my eyes when we use that definition against these people. Why? Because the blue-haired sphere that's been convinced that Elon Musk is a Nazi is not the same thing as Al Qaeda or Osama bin Laden. These people that are spray painting a Tesla aren't the same as the people who go blindfold a guy, make him kneel on the beach, and they saw off their head on camera and put it online just to show the world a lesson. It's not the same. We shouldn't be calling it the same. What we should do is kind of back down a little bit on calling each other domestic terrorists. And even though you know that if the roles were reversed, they would be calling you a domestic terrorist, that doesn't make it right to call them a domestic terrorist, because it's not. That definition of terrorism was intentionally made so vague as not to offend the delicate sensibilities of a big chunk of this country, that we made it too broad. Well, you know what we mean by terrorism. We don't mean protesters that get upset and set a dumpster on fire. We don't mean protesters that get upset and spray paint someone's car. We mean the people that saw off heads. We mean the people that bomb buildings. We mean the people that hijack planes. So these people, no, they shouldn't be arrested and charged with domestic terrorism. They should be charged with violence, intimidation, property damage, whatever the heck they're doing that's already illegal. But what do you think? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 98.3. Welcome to the big show. If you want to be a part, 800-288-9227. Email me, james at WBAP.com, or float me a message on YouTube or Facebook. I don't care. For my next guest, Janice Spooner's coming back on, and I like to ask her about these headlines that affect your money. You're over at Great Plains Bank. You guys worried about the stock market freaking out today?
Good afternoon. Not worried about it. Doesn't surprise me to the news and what's been going on with the new presidency and administration, particularly tariffs and what's going on with small businesses and different countries that we are having to negotiate with.
Yeah, I like talking to a local bank every once in a while because you deal more with the people in our own backyard. Any changes you've noticed from tariffs?
Actually, yes. Small businesses are really concerned about what's going on right now with the tariffs that are already implemented with China, as well as those pending coming online here probably on April 2nd. They, especially industries like textiles, for example, a wedding dress maker, fabricator, seller, designer here locally in DFW, they've had bridal gowns ordered for months, and now these new fabrics are already being charged extraordinary tariffs. Not that it's not uncommon from China in history, but still, their margins are crashing.
So, are you seeing them having problems finding replacements or alternate sources of fabric, or did they just have to eat the tariff whole?
Both. They're and should be looking for alternate methods and providers, vendors for that. And I coach that to small businesses right now before it continues on. Start looking for alternate means, but the impact is here, and it's unfortunately already impacting them.
Well, let's talk about the alternates. You say you help people find that. What does that look like? I've never coached a small business into finding alternate input sources.
I don't tell them where to find it. I tell them that they need to start looking and diversifying their suppliers. Look at locking in price contracts. Look to automate and reduce waste. Explore alternative materials. They have to start really looking for options because there's going to be inventory shortages.
Right. Well, I've also thought whichever country gets through this first, and then they're like, fine, we'll do the reciprocal tariffs, and they would become like the first backup plan to so many of these other countries that still have their inputs choked off into coming into the United States. So much of our manufacturing could just move to India pretty quick, and who cares if your iPhone is snapped together in China or India when you're over here in Texas?
Well, and they're going to have to look at different means. I understand we're trying to right a wrong or right a blind eye to our country and the taxes. And through these growing pains, there will be pain. There will be suffering. But we can't just sit still and not find alternate ways through innovation or otherwise to start saving that money before the other countries, if they do come online and increase tariffs. We've got to start doing that now. It's not the first time China has charged us these high tariff prices back in the trade wars of 2018. But still, we've forgotten about that, and we need to pivot quickly right now.
All right, Janice Spooner, at your bank, Great Plains Bank, you guys deal with a bunch of stuff that's not really public facing, the credit markets and whatnot. What are you guys talking about behind closed doors? Where do you think interest rates will be in like 6 months or a year from now? You think rates are going to go up or down?
Well, it's very fluid right now. Most of the conversations and those economists that I follow say rates are going to be flat and potentially go down 2/4 basis points twice or 2 times this year. One maybe in June, one maybe in late fall, winter. That all depends on inflation. Those latest reports are going up. So where is that? The Fed can't ignore that. The Fed can't ignore what's happening in these tariffs and the tariff wars and production already pulling back for manufacturing companies. So it's a lot to weigh in on and a lot to consider, but unless it turns really wrong really fast, it looks to be flat to a slight improvement this year.
All right, Janice Spooner, get back to running that bank, and we'll have you on the James Show again pretty soon. Thanks for your expertise.
Thanks. Take care.
You can find her at gpbankok.com. That's for Great Plains National Bank, gpbankok.com. All right, coming up next, there was a couple of troubling stories here in the news. A kid got shot, an NFL player got in trouble in our backyard. And the reporting on these, it just comes up with some interesting problems that I think you'll be interested in. Stick around. 800-288-9227 if you want to jump in. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing, and I like in the commercial world, you hear some of the same cliches that are used over and over. The best in town or the number one XYZ. Do you really have a ranking system? Do you have a USA Today AP poll of the top 25 roofers in Dallas? No, you don't. So at some point, you're just going to have to trust somebody. And it's just not just me. Hey, I'm the new guy. I've only been here a couple of years. Casey Bartholomew has been with them for years. My friends over at The Ticket have been with them for years. And they've been in business for over 3 decades. And what's special about them? This isn't some franchise and some national company. This is a family business. Mom and dad started it, John and Tish, and now their adult son, Trevor, is helping out with day-to-day operations. And so that's what makes them real. So BlueRibbonDFW.com is where you go if you already have an issue with your roof, you already have a leak, you already have some rotting gables or an issue with a soffit vent, or if you don't even know what that is, you give them a call. If you suspect that you might have a problem from the recent storms, you give them a call and they'll come out and look at it. If nothing's wrong, they'll just high-five you and come back when you have a problem. But in the meantime, if you do need some issues worked on, you use promo code WBAP, free ridge vent ventilation. That's right, free ridge vent ventilation to everyone who mentions they heard it here on the James Show or WBAP in general. So if you need someone to trust, you have some roofing issues, BlueRibbonDFW.com. BlueRibbonDFW.com. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show, and you're going to want to stick around if you can, because we're playing Dead or Alive for 2 tickets to see Santana, who's coming to WinStar World Casino on April 25th. That's pretty cool, Santana. I mean, it's one of the few people left around that was actually at Woodstock. What? That's cool. Were you there, Kimberly? I'm kidding. But I know that's not going to be for, almost 2 hours now. So if you have to leave, I totally understand. You can come back and check it out on the podcast, the James Show podcast. Go to WBAP.com or the WBAP app. Santana tickets. That's pretty cool. So I thought I'd brag for a second. There was a story that it might have floated around on your social media, and it's in the Dallas Morning News and WFAA.com. And I think we even had something about it on WBAP.com. Is that where I saw it first? But it's Xavier Worthy. Sound familiar? Well, if it doesn't, that's all right. He's a local kid who just went to the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's really well known in sports circles around here because he also played for the great Texas Longhorns. Do we clap for that? I don't want to alienate our Aggie audience. Don't be sensitive. I cheer for Aggies too. Hush. That's not the what? Oh yeah. Well, look. Okay, fine. Frogs too. I don't have to celebrate every college just because I mentioned one. Ponies, whatever. Green. But the article here, it was disappointing to read because I don't know whether or not this guy was guilty when I first read the headlines. But the problem is, if you did this wouldn't be a headline. If Garrett did this wouldn't be a headline. But only because this guy is well known, only because this guy is a big star. He played for the Longhorns and then the Chiefs and was just in the Super Bowl. He gets arrested, and we're told that he is charged with a felony that has to do with domestic violence, something to that effect. I forgot what the legal term is. But as of Saturday evening, the charge has been dismissed/declined. So the thing that's ugly about this is all the folks that rushed to go report this. This guy got stained. This is going to show up in Google searches for his name. He's going to be attached to this forevermore for something that got dropped. For something that got dropped in 24 hours. And that's terrible. That'd be terrible if it happened to you, but it only happened to this guy because he has a name. And so this opens up an interesting conversation on, well, what makes it a headline then? It's not a headline if a regular guy gets in trouble for some undisclosed. It's not like we have pictures or video of him hitting a woman, which would, make it titillating and sensational and kind of explain why. It's just the boring old text. Hey, this guy that you may have heard of that played football? Yeah, well, he got booked, and now everyone's going to associate him with domestic violence. Rightly or wrongly, it's definitely up for grabs because we don't know. We don't know if he really did it or not. Maybe he did. Man, that's not fair. So it's only a news story if it's someone you know. And then let me look at it. Let me show you another little local story here and kind of tie this together. Over the weekend in East Oak Cliff, a 16-year-old was shot and killed. But this isn't going to be a big story. We don't even know the guy's name. We don't know the killer's name. I don't know if the guy's got caught. Will they update us when he's caught? I mean, maybe. It'll probably just be a couple of paragraphs in black and white, no pictures of the crime scene, and no breathless TV reporter standing at the scene doing a live stand-up report. We're not going to follow this like we follow other children that get murdered. And then, 16-year-old, that's a child, okay? I know in a lot of circumstances they don't look or talk or act like children. But think about when Casey Anthony was accused of killing her child. She's back in the news now, right? That was a story that made national news constantly for 2 years. Kaylee Anthony, her daughter. Is her life any more important than our neighbor, the 16-year-old that got shot and killed in East Oak Cliff? So why is that story big? Casey Anthony wasn't a famous person like Xavier Worthy. She's not related to anyone. It's not like she's Hunter Biden, the president's son, or anything like that. Why does that story get so much more attention? Well, I mean, like a million times more coverage than the 16-year-old that happened in your backyard. Look at other comparisons. What about George Floyd? Why does his get so much attention? And the most important thing I've noticed in the stories that never seem to get widespread national attention like this one, because this happens almost every day. It's weird that it kind of seems like it should get news coverage. It seems to fit the criteria of what's newsworthy. Like, go back to George Floyd. His death was huge news. Why? Why was his death reported on far more than our 16-year-old neighbor? Well, some people will say that racism is a major issue affecting America, and this racial angle is not just an isolated incident. It's a long string of abuses going all the way back to 1619. No, we can't say that either. Name one story that got half as much reporting as George Floyd that was a racially motivated homicide where the races were reversed. Does it never happen, or does it just not get the same amount of attention? So you're not really worried about racism in general. You're just worried about racism if it goes in one direction. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people who write headlines and pursue these stories and give them flowing coverage, while the 16-year-old that got shot in our own backyard, you don't even know his name yet, but you're not going to block a highway for him. There's going to be no specials about him. There's not going to be murals all over the country about him. So is it the rule that it's because it was a cop homicide? Because a cop killed him? And, cops killing someone that's an interracial killing, ooh, that adds a certain level of spice. That makes it newsworthy. Okay, same thing. Tell me one instance where a story got 1/millionth the coverage of George Floyd that was a racially motivated killing of a white guy, or a racially motivated killing of a white guy by a cop, or just a killing of a white guy by a cop. Anything like that. Name one. Name one big story about a white guy who was unjustly murdered by cops. I mean, there's not none. You struggle to think of it. What, like David Koresh? This is as close as we get. So it's not the rule that cop homicides are newsworthy on their own. And it's not a rule that cop homicides are only newsworthy if it's an interracial cop homicide. So I submit to you also that it's not only if it's a black guy being killed by a white cop. I submit the case of Robert Fortson. He's the airman, the Air Force active duty military member who was killed unjustly by a white cop in Florida. And it just happened, I think, 2 years ago, maybe. But he was an innocent guy killed by a white cop wrongly. The cop wasn't immediately thrown into the jail and condemned forever for murder. Why isn't that a big news story like George Floyd? And here it is, because it doesn't divide us. It doesn't split us apart. We would all agree on that. White, black, and different. Because it's actually, there's body cam footage of it. You can go look it up. You can go look up the story of Tony Timpa, something that happened over here on Mockingbird over by Love Field. It was a cop who put his knee in the back of a white guy in the little grassy part of in the parking lot, between the parking lot and the curb, or the sidewalk and the curb. And he ended up suffocating to death just like George Floyd. Didn't make national news. There's body cam footage of that too. Why not? Because it doesn't divide us. The media's pattern here, if you were trying to draw, if you were trying to computer code the algorithm on what makes something a headline and what makes other similar stories not a headline, it just appears the media is intent on highlighting the stories that keep people thinking that this is a racist hellhole of white supremacy or male bigotry or whatever the dishonest talking point is. They're just always seeking to divide. It's a very ugly thing. And you also see it on they omit positive stories as well. They don't just highlight negative stories. They omit positive stories. Has ABC, MSNBC, Jake Tapper, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, any of these people, have you heard anyone praise the appointment of Kash Patel as our first FBI chief of Indian descent, or first FBI chief of Hindu descent, or whatever? Why not? I thought they love diversity, equity, inclusion, all that good stuff. No? Only if it makes your team look good and the other team look bad? Well, then you're not really interested in that. You're exploiting these existing divisions and strifes and struggles, an ugly part of history. You're exploiting that for political gain. That's what the media headlines are based on. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Laura Reese from the Heritage Foundation on illegal immigration. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yay, let's go. My next guest, Laura Reese from the Heritage Foundation, helps us understand what's going on in the immigration world. And one headline made me think of you. I knew you were coming on today, and then I saw this. It says the Trump administration has converted the old CBP One app. It's now a self-deportation app. That seemed like a welcome change.
Yes, and thanks for having me on. This is something that we recommended, was for them to hang on to that app and repurpose it for this very reason. And to add not just a photo requirement of the alien, but also GPS to verify that, yes, in fact, an alien has departed the U.S. But this also goes to solve biometric exit, which is something that's been required for decades and has really been lagging. So this is a win-win.
When you say this was something recommended, you mean in the evil, hated Project 2025? Was this in Project 2025?
It was not in the mandate for leadership in the book, if you will, because this is a little bit more operational. But it was.
You could have scared so many people with that.
I know.
So what does this new app even do? Why would, if you're an illegal, why would you use this? Yes, let me get an app to deport myself.
Well, the Trump administration has also required aliens who are here to register, which is a long-standing section in the immigration law. And if you think about it, it makes sense. We have no idea how many people are here, who is here, or where they are, thanks to the Biden administration. And so they can use this app to register. They can use it to give a change of address. That's another requirement. But also it changes behavior, because if illegal aliens or deportable aliens know, hey, DHS or the federal government knows I'm here and can communicate with me, then perhaps they will comply with the law and be more likely to leave on their own accord.
Oh, okay, so they don't get barred for life. So if you go ahead and sign up now and you get caught before you can get to the Rio Grande, then you're not like on the blacklist.
Yeah, there's already in the law various time bars for your readmission, and the Trump administration has hinted that I think they're going to come out with kind of some carrots and sticks, that if you self-deport and we don't have to spend the resources to locate you, detain you, deport you, then perhaps you could get a return to, let's say, the middle of the line than the back of the line, or no line at all if you wanted to return.
Well, we've seen the headlines, Laura, that the illegal crossings at the border are at historic lows, if not all-time lows. But what about the drug trafficking? Has that been slowed down, or do we even know yet?
Yeah, I mean, overall, American deaths from drug overdoses is declining, and so that's a good thing. It rapidly rose during COVID and during the Biden administration years when we had open borders. So it's good that the deaths are going down. In terms of seizures, that could go both ways. If there's more seized, does that mean there's more crossing, or we're catching a higher percentage of it? And for that, time will tell. But the cartels are very adept, and if they're not able to get their drugs across our southern border, then they will go to Canada and cross into the U.S. that way. They will go to other countries, but they're not going to give up this business easily.
All right, Laura Reese from Heritage Foundation. Do you have any insight on there's the story I saw over the weekend, a Palestinian activist who was one of the guys leading the Columbia protest where they were camping out for, I don't know, a couple of months there. He was arrested by immigration agents and is going to be deported. And a lot of people were saying, oh, he's being deported over his political speech. I guess we don't have free speech anymore. But there's a little more to it than that, I bet.
Yes, there are security grounds of both inadmissibility and deportability if you support terrorism. And he clearly has been in support of Hamas and threatening Jewish students at campus. And so that is a ground to not get a visa, or if you have a visa, to have it revoked, or even if you have a green card, to have that revoked and be removed.
I'm surprised people have problems with this because, they're so concerned about politically motivated violence and political domestic terrorists. But when you have actual terrorists and people who are actually supporting terrorism, just openly in the middle, like in front of cameras, they write it on a sign and they hold it up in front of a camera. People are hesitant to deport those folks. It's like, I don't get that.
Well, I think it's two things. One, it hasn't happened in a very long time, so people aren't used to it. And two, this only goes one way, right? It's the very vocal minority that pushes anti-Semitism, and that's all you hear about. And so we need more people to speak out against that and to be the public majority, the vocal majority to enforce it.
Well, I just appreciate the people so concerned about free speech. It's like, you shouldn't have phrases that you're not allowed to say. This is a free country. Well, if you're trying to be an immigrant, death to America should be a deal breaker.
Right. Clearly, millions of people want to come here. I think we can be a little bit more choosy about who comes and who gets to stay. So if this is how you're going to act here, then guess what? You leave and we'll find someone better.
All right. Well, fun little report. Where do we find your work outside of WBAP, Laura Reese?
They can find it at heritage.org.
Thank you very much. All right. That's your immigration update. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, though, there's a guy who made history in South Carolina because he was executed by firing squad, and that reignites the debate. Should that be legal? What should the death penalty options be? Should they get to choose? Should you give them like this little buffet? Like you go to the Chinese buffet. What do you want to? How do you want to die? Do you want lethal injection? You want like the nitrogen gas? Do you want the electric chair? Do you want hanging? Do we bring back hanging too? I wouldn't go so far as to drawing and quartering, but what should the death penalty options be? And if you want to really get morbid on me, which one would you prefer? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'll give you my death penalty menu next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What's your preferred death penalty execution method? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm not bringing this up because I'm an incredibly morbid person, but history was made in South Carolina. Some guy named Brad Sigmund was killed by firing squad. I guess there was more than one gun there. I was just trying. I'm getting the story. The breakdown from this is from Dallas Express, dallasexpress.com. And coincidentally, I'm going to be talking with Chris Putnam in the next segment. He's the, what do they call it? The managing editor over Dallas. It's his outfit, dallasexpress.com. So that's where I'm getting this. But this is going to be a pretty heavy dallasexpress.com day because also, you'll hear later. So I found this interesting, though. The guy's backstory doesn't matter. He's a terrible human being, totally deserved to die. Murdered his ex-girlfriend's parents with a baseball bat, whatever. So he said, hey, I'm looking through the options here, and it says technically I can request to be killed by a firing squad. And his attorney's like, whatever you want, dude. And so they came out. This guy had to stand with a target, with a bullseye that marked his heart. A hood was placed over his head, and he was up against a brick wall at 6:05 p.m. I guess, what was this, Friday? Yeah. 6:05 p.m. Boom, he shot. A doctor examined him for about 90 seconds, confirmed his death like a minute later. And now we're stuck with this weird situation where people are discussing whether or not this was correct. Should this have even happened? Some people are against the death penalty in all situations. I don't want to hear from you. No offense. This isn't an argument for you. But here's some options. What about lethal injection? I think it's almost impossible to say that that's cruel and unusual. You get one shot that puts you to sleep. After you're asleep, another shot stops your heart. Supposedly you don't feel a thing. I don't think you would feel a thing. But I think that's one of the ones I would choose. Out of the menu. You look at the other one. This guy was also trying to get, or was it another guy? There was some guy that was trying to get killed by nitrogen gas, where they put you in a room, they pump in nitrogen gas, and you just gently fall asleep, never to wake up again. I don't know if I'd want a gas chamber myself. That's awful. Hanging is still an option in some states, and nope. I'll do a big negative on that. I don't want to have my neck snapped in one option. The other one is where you just slowly choke to death, like Debo's got you in a headlock. Not doing that. I'm not sure if the electric chair, I don't think I would choose it. But if that's what you want, fine. Is that cruel and unusual? That's kind of a maybe on my list. I think the only other one I would really be interested in is maybe the guillotine. I always thought that'd be a good way. If you were going to die anyway, just get your head chopped off like in the movies. Just like, look, if it's good enough for aristocracy, if Marie Antoinette, Louis the 16th, well, I guess the 15th and the 16th, then hey, why not me? If it's good for 30,000 common Parisians in the 1790s, it's good enough for old Parker here. But what do you think about this? Are we getting a little crazy here? Do we need to stop this firing squad? We're past that now. That was just a necessity of a simpler time. 800-288-9227. This is Mike in Dallas. You're on WBAP. What's your preferred execution style, sir?
Well, I think we might finally have found a use for all the fentanyl that's come into the country.
Oh, man, you know what? Add that to the list already. 7 points for Mike, because I even thought about that when I was setting up for the show earlier, and then I just forgot to say it right then. Yeah, actually, if I could choose out of something that's not even on the menu or has ever been on the menu, how about a heroin overdose? Or you know what I was thinking, Mike in Dallas? I was thinking the Chris Farley special. I want a speedball. Look, John, if it's good enough for John Belushi and Chris Farley, it's good enough for old Parker here. But, Chris Farley died from a mix of cocaine and morphine. People do morphine like recreationally. That's weird. But Look, if you get to choose, you're right. You're right. Drugs, overdose. Just you feel so damn good, your heart stops. I love that, Mike. Thank you. Let's try Steve in Weatherford. You're on WBAP. What do you think?
I think we need to cut it down to 24 months after you're convicted. As long as it's clear that you did the thing, we ought to take you out in less than 24 months to send a message to everybody else. Screw up. We'll get to you real quick. Fix your wagon.
Yeah, we already have sort of an express lane here in Texas for people who want to waive all their appeals. They can get it done pretty quick. But what about all the guys that want to fight it? How long do you think they should be able to string it out? Because, on a long enough time scale, some of these guys have been exonerated. And that's the scary part about the death penalty is pulling that trigger too soon, metaphorically or literally.
Well, we have the capability to know if you did it or not know you did it. The not know yes will take 20 years. The guys we know you did it, you're toast in 24 months to send a message to the other bad guys. We're not going to play around and let you sit on your butt for 20 years and eat prison food and watch TV. We're going to take you out for doing something wrong.
Yeah, when people ask if the death penalty is effective, I'd be like, I don't know. I'd sure like to find out if we'd actually try it sometime. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Stephen Weatherford. Good stuff. All right. Coming up next, Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. A couple of headlines like that. Also, he has a weird one about a U.S. ship, an oil tanker, another boat, a cargo boat ran into it over in Europe. Is that just an accident? We just have a whole tanker full of jet fuel that blew up over the weekend. I only saw that I saw it first on Dallas Express. Also, there's a couple other Dallas and Fort Worth related stories with Chris Putnam of Dallas Express coming up next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Coming back to the James Show, the guy, the man, the brain behind the DallasExpress.com website, Chris Putnam's back on. Hey, Chris, welcome back to the James Show.
Good to see you, buddy.
All right, so in the last segment, I was bouncing off a story I first, I saw on DallasExpress.com where y'all went into a little more detail about the guy who was executed in South Carolina by firing squad. And just for funsies, do you have a preferred method of execution if you ever, get busted for running a controversial website and killed for your thought crimes? So what would your preferred method of execution be?
I'll take the needle. Just put me to sleep. I don't need to be shot.
Yeah, if it's an option, it hasn't been tried yet, but I would like to do the speedball thing that Chris Farley and John Belushi did, where you mix cocaine and morphine. I don't think that's one of the options. And then we had a pretty good.
I once had a big glass of red wine and took a muscle relaxer. Because I'd been doing some work, forgetting that I'd taken it, and that felt pretty good. So that might be a good way to go too. Kids,
we do not endorse the sideways comments of Chris Putnam on WBAP. Jason had sent in a comment. He said the death penalty should be done the same way they took the life. So, if there's like a rape and murder, I guess you got to get raped before the death. But, if you stabbed him to death, then you get stabbed to death. Or if you shot him, you get shot. Or if you suffocated him or choked him or left him in a closet for a week or something like that. I thought that was an interesting take. But let's get
an eye for an eye, I suppose, right?
Yes, that is sort of a medieval way to look at it. Goodness. I
do think there should be a special kind of death penalty for people that rape children.
Yeah, or anything children. Yeah, there's a special place in hell for them for sure. Now, I saw this first on your site, and then I had to bounce around to other sites to try and find more on it, but I didn't really get more on it. This was weird. A U.S.-flagged oil tanker collided with a Portuguese-flagged cargo ship in the North Sea, which is over there by like Great Britain and Norway, Sweden, that whole area above Europe. And this is an oil tanker. It was full of jet fuel that was owned by the U.S. military. So is this really, this doesn't feel like an accident. Is this just an accident, Chris?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It's definitely a bit of a strange story.
Right. So this is one of the things that's not even like a North Texas related story, but you guys broke that one first. Let's go over into Irving. We were talking about this last week on the James Show, that weird triangle of dirt that is where Texas Stadium used to be, has all kinds of controversy because, look, I'm a guy that is pro legalized gambling here in Texas or everywhere. But the way they were trying to do it, the way they're trying to rezone that thing, it feels kind of sneaky. And even though I agree with like their end result, it feels like they're doing something wrong there. Explain that one, Chris.
Yeah. So what's apparently happened is, the city or somebody in city leadership, there's some discussion about whether the mayor was involved in these conversations or any other elected officials versus the city manager, is fast tracking basically a rezoning process for quote unquote gaming, understanding that casinos are still technically illegal in Texas, except for, I believe, some Native American ones. And so, that's a major or fundamental change to the character of your community. And I think the concern is that the community hasn't been involved. And now they're trying to fast track this vote to approve it, with the pretext being that if they don't, then the city of Irving is going to be not competitive in terms of competing for, one of the 10 casinos that would be approved under one of the bills that's currently in the Texas legislature that's being carried by Representative Guerin in Fort Worth. And so again, there's two issues, right? I mean, one issue is, are casinos right for Texas or not? But the second issue, and I think probably the one that's a little bit more concerning, at least at the moment, is the process and whether or not the community should be more engaged in that discussion, before they actually rezone something that hasn't even been made legal yet.
Well, thanks for keeping an eye on some of that. The other thing I saw on Dallas Express that is explicitly North Texas story is when an analysis was made of how the country's biggest cities were handling their budgets. Of the 9 Texas cities evaluated, only 2 were run by Republicans, Plano and Fort Worth, but also there's only a couple of them that were operating in the black. I was kind of surprised by that.
Oh, I'm not. I'm a former mayor pro tem myself for a Tarrant County city, and we had a balanced budget, and we had incredibly clean financials. But a lot of these communities just carry a tremendous amount of debt. The debt service alone, costs taxpayers a ton of money. And then you start opening the door into how they're spending that money, and the questions about how they're spending that money. And there's a lot of nonsense out there, frankly.
Well,
a lot of waste. I mean, it'd be great. These discussions about having a Texas Doge, and of course that's at the state level. But really, every community should have somebody that's responsible for rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, and keeping clean financials.
Well, we say a lot of negative stuff, but this is the rare chance we get to highlight some positives here. The cities that actually ran the biggest Texas cities that actually ran with surpluses. Corpus Christi, which isn't in our listening area, so who cares? But also Arlington and Plano. So give them credit. Well, all these other cities are running in a deficit or maybe breaking even. Arlington and Plano seem to have it together better than their neighbors. So kudos to them. What do they do different, Chris?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what they're doing different. I could tell you what we did. We apply basically a zero-based budgeting model, and every year we make every department, and it's a laborious process. You go through a lot of internal discussions with various departmental leaders, but we make them go line item by line item through their budget and say, like, for this year we either need more of this, less of it, or the same, and here's why, or we eliminate it altogether. And, what we see in the federal government, of course, and I'm sure this translates down to the local level, particularly in your larger cities, is they never look backwards at the things that they've approved in the past. So you could be spending money on something that is not even relevant anymore. But, some bureaucrat or, some department is sitting there, using it as a financial cushion, for however they're just operating their business day to day.
Chris Putnam, I got about 30 seconds left for you. Tell me how disappointing the Texas legislative session has been thus far.
It's frustrating. And, for all the reasons I think you've talked about on your show, the Senate, of course, moves with a tremendous amount of speed and a lot of certainty in terms of the types of things they want to get done and they want to pass. And then the House just sits on things. And then they play this game where they say they've run out of time and they don't have time to get to certain things. And it's purposeful. They're basically pulling a head fake on, the voters and the taxpayers because they don't want to pass those things. And so just this dysfunction between, the Texas House and the Senate remains frustrating. And, every new session, which of course they only happen every other year, we become hopeful that dynamic's going to change. But as long as the same cabal is kind of in charge of the Texas House, it just doesn't look like there's the prospect of real change.
Yeah, well, I thank God it's only every other year. I think we should make it maybe once every 4 years. Chris Putnam, DallasExpress.com. I love your website. Thank you very much for your time on the show.
Thanks.
All right. Man, that's a tough one. So disappointing, the legislative session. If you haven't kept up with that, we'll talk about it extensively on the James Show. Please just stick around. All right, coming up next, terrible story of Gene Hackman has kind of been uncovered. Did you hear about his death scenario? You'll hear about that next on the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Are you trying to buy or sell a home? Well, I've got the guy for you, Bob Lavelle Home Marketing Services, back on the James Show. And look, a lot of things are changing. Programs are being cut. Spending's being cut. Interest rates are going up, down? Who knows? Stock market's going up, down. Who knows what they're going to be in a month, 3 months, 6 months from now? So how do you navigate all this uncertainty and get into a home? You call Bob Lavelle. Hey, Bob.
You know, I think you hit it on the head there. You absolutely hit it on the head. But, you know, when you think about the things that are changing right now, that means that the builders are changing also. We're seeing deals out there where someone just got a heck of a deal at 3.5% interest for the first year and then 4.5 after that for the next 29. Builders are getting so much inventory right now. Deals are to be made. We're seeing $100,000 off of prices before we even ask them what we can get done. So might be a good time, you know.
3.5 is kind of unheard of in this current environment, Bob Lavelle. I'm not going to ask you to give out the secret sauce, but if the guy listening right now calls you, you can maybe do this magic for him, or was that just like a one-time thing?
Well, in his case, all right, it was a builder, and the builder bought down the rate far enough where he could get that 3.5% first year, 4.5% thereafter. But other builders are kind of taking the hint. When there's a lot of property available, deals are there to be had, but you have to ask for them, or you have to at least know. I mean, you think of the Metroplex, and most people think Dallas, Fort Worth. Look out in the boondocks where these deals are being done in Alvarado, Anna, Arbery, Little Elm, Mansfield, McKinney, Prosper, Wiley. My builders have properties all over, but you got to pick up the phone and make the call.
972-392-9595. 972-392-9595. Go to blessyourheart.com or 972-392-9595. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, James.
Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Coming up at 4:35, we're playing Dead or Alive for 2 tickets to see Santana. These are great tickets, man. Windstar World Casino, April 25th. You get to see a guy that was at Woodstock. You know, some of these tickets, I'm not as excited as I am about Santana to give away, but Dead or Alive is going to be awesome. And we're doing the 60s TV edition. If you can come back here in about 45 minutes, you'll get to hear it. If not, you can come back and check it out on the podcast. After the show, I'll go over on my laptop and I'll download the little audio pieces, edit it together, and put it all up for free for you. So go check it out, WBAP.com, WBAP app, or wherever you already listen to podcasts. Even that little app on your phone that just says podcast, go in there. You can probably find the James Show. So check it out. All right, so this happened about a week ago, but we didn't really have any details on the death of acting legend Gene Hackman. He's 95 years old. His wife, 65 years old. They were found dead February 26th in their Santa Fe home. God, that was like 2 weeks ago now. Alongside one of their 3 dogs. So we didn't know what happened, and people, the internet sleuths, were throwing out all kinds of just really fantastical stories. But this one's not great. This one is not a fantastic. There's no conspiracy. There's no murder-suicide. There's not like some drug overdose. They weren't doing some weird BDSM, someone choked on a bondage mask or something. It's just a terrible story all the way around. The wife had some sort of weird virus. It's a rare rodent-borne illness called hantavirus, H-A-N-T-A virus. Never heard of that until this story. And she passed away. Now, maybe February 11th. Final toxicology reports are still pending. But when they got there, the bodies had been decomposing for a while. Now, Gene Hackman is gone. He has Alzheimer's, and she has basically been his caretaker through this natural decline for the last few years, which is why you hadn't seen him in public in a long time. And so what happened after that? We don't really know specifically, but they're left for you to infer that you have an Alzheimer patient who, I don't know if he hurt himself or he fell down or he just didn't eat or what happened. But we know that there was an Alzheimer's patient who, when his caretaker died, was left to his own devices, and he died sometime thereafter. Now, this is just god awful because Gene Hackman, I don't know what his specific situation is, but you've probably encountered someone with Alzheimer's, or at least heard stories about how they can be lucid for a few minutes at a time. And so one of the horrible things to think about is, Gene Hackman's probably shuffling around most of the day, not knowing what's going on. But did he ever, even if you're in that state, if you see your dead wife, that doesn't cause you to call 911? If you see your dead wife, and even if you don't recognize her as your wife, you see a dead person, do you not remember what 911 is? Do you not remember how to work a phone? So this is just god awful. Did he have moments of lucidity where he would walk into the bathroom and he would see his dead wife and he'd be like, oh my goodness, she's dead or she's in trouble. I need to call for help. And then he would go find the phone. And by the time he got to the cell phone, he would forget what he was looking for the cell phone for. Isn't this just a god awful story? Now I wish some of those conspiracy theories were true. I wish there was just a carbon monoxide leak somewhere in the gas line and they ended up going to sleep and not waking up or just passing out in the bathroom. I wish there was some guy who just came in and shot him for the head because he wanted to rob the jewel safe. That is just one of the most god-awful, terrible stories. And it's super scary for me and you because this could happen to us. This didn't happen because, he's some elite guy who's a Richie Rich living up in the hills. And this could be me and Miss Parker one day. Anyway, it's not a fun story, but I thought you'd like to know what was behind the headlines now that we know that Gene Hackman situation. They're piecing it together because they have just the weirdest strands of information. They have information from his pacemaker. They have toxicology reports. We'll probably get a little more better understanding of the timeline. But as far as the events and in the order in which they happen, we think that's our best guess right now. Terrible stuff. Terrible way to go. All right. This is the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. My next guest is making her first appearance on the James Show. Am I talking to Sarah Delane or Sarah Lane, first of all? Welcome to the James Show. Give the listeners a little bit of your background before we start jumping into the issues here, Sarah.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. But yes, it is Sarah Delane. I was originally, my background was in the entertainment industry, so there is an AKA of Sarah Lane, yes. If you Google, you'll find both. But so I started in Hollywood. Now I'm a personal brand expert, business consultant, marketing strategist, and agency owner. So my agency is Stage 8.
Fantastic. Yeah, because if I Google you to try and look at what you're up to, a lot of stuff pops up. So apparently you've been very busy. And so let's talk. So let's talk about what you do now.
So I do branding and marketing. I specialize in people who have a personal brand. They're the face of their business. They need to manage their reputations online. They need to build a business or sell a product or a service. And the best and fastest, most efficient way to do that is using the power of their personal brand. So I help them strategize their business and create marketing campaigns using the power of their personal brand.
All right, Sarah Delane. So what would you tell Elon Musk? Over the last couple of weeks, there's been a rash of vandalism to Cybertrucks and Tesla showrooms. And now there's like a hacking attempt at Twitter/X. How does someone like that repair their brand, or can they repair their brand?
So I think what the important conversation is, because it's really not about political sides as much as that's in the conversation. I think the real story is actually about kind of the radical, rebellious behavior of some of these individuals that are unable to be civil, and it kind of reflects the level of mental illness by some of them, if I'm going to go so bold to say. And we really need to stop tolerating that behavior, regardless of political views. So some of these campaigns that are like, make them a toxic brand in order to take them down, Elon being the most recent one, I really feel like the real toxic brand that why we aren't addressing is the individuals who are starting these campaigns that incite violence, defamation, then it extends to hurting innocent people, which is exactly what's happening. People who are driving Teslas or getting vandalized just because they own a Tesla. So all of that, we've just reached a level in society that just really, our tolerance should be null.
Right. Well, Sarah Delane, if Elon Musk called you, he's like, look, you're a brand strategist. Clearly, I need some brand strategy here. Would you tell him to do anything different, or would you tell him, look, this is just the nature of the game. Keep plugging along. You're not doing anything wrong.
So I think, and I don't know Elon, and I haven't met with him personally, and I don't know what his business model is from a branding perspective. Again, outside of politics, and this, like, don't make any assumptions on what my political views are based on this statement either. However, from simply a brand perspective, I think his brand archetype is creator and innovator. And so every brand and every personal brand is driven by their purpose, and it's driven by their values and the mission that they want to create and impact they want to create in the world. I think that he's focused on that. It's then the people who kind of want to try to take that down. So where are we as any leader, anybody who has a personal brand, or anybody who wants to build anything in the world? Again, you have to do what you're going to do. And there's always going to be somebody who's like the little bully that's going to try to, take down your sandcastle that you built. And that's where I think the conversation needs to be. But I tell CEOs, entrepreneurs all the time, absolutely, based on society, it's not the smartest thing, obviously, to share your political or even your religious views because society shows up this way. So again, if we're not addressing that conversation, then CEOs aren't going to feel like they're able to share what those political or religious views are. Again, though, he's a creator. He's an innovator. He's building. So he's going to keep building, whatever that is. And as long as he's driven by those values from a business and a brand perspective, we can respect that. The people who are trying to tear that down, I feel like any leader, anybody who's trying to build anything would really relate compassionately to that.
Well, I relate on a much smaller scale to that because, no one's like torching our office or spray painting my car or anything. But we have to deal with a certain stigma that comes with being on talk radio. And, we have like Dan Bongino, and before that we had Rush Limbaugh on. And so there's always going to be some people out there that think we're like literally Hitler. And that's so exhausting. Like
Isn't it?
Right. The sports guys don't have to deal with that. The country guys don't have to deal with that. If I was on a rock station, I wouldn't have to deal with that. But it's something that my heart bleeds a little for this guy because I'm in an opinion format where we talk about subjects that are necessarily going to be divisive in the eyes of some people. And I don't know how I get around that.
So here's this, like from a bird's eye view. Again, if we as a culture, as a society, if we want to foster growth, any company culture knows that if you go too far left or too far right, that doesn't foster growth. So from a cultural, international, or even domestic stance, if we can't see past, as individuals that make up this culture, if we can't see past just left versus right, then we're only limiting ourselves into binary thinking, which kind of just puts you in a very sophomoric place. And so we have the power and we have the ability to kind of go back to the yes and rule if we want to, if we can, and get that third perspective. And if we can do that, then I feel like what people don't like is they don't like injustice.
Well, I think we saw Bud Light do a turnaround where they ran into some political waters, and the heat was on them for a few months. And then they just turned around and threw a bunch of money at people who were perceived to be on the other side of the aisle, and they've kind of leveled it out. They bought a big endorsement with UFC and Dana White and Shane Gillis and didn't they get like a Kid Rock endorsement out of this too, or something like that?
I think it was.
Yeah,
I think if I remember, I'd have to double check, but you're right. Bud Light.
So it can happen. You can be staying with politics and turn it back around.
So that's what I think. If we let people have freedom to change their minds, to backpedal or whatever, is he going to? I don't know. Again, I don't call him at home. And yet at the same time, we all should reserve the right to say, okay, did we go too left? Or did we go too right? Just like those brands. I think they went a little too hard in one direction. And again, that doesn't foster growth. So I agree with you. Like if you put out I think Elon has put out a statement where he's like, hey, sorry for the innocent people who have been affected, which I agree with. I think that was really, really smart. So he's doing his best to address the narrative. Can he pull back? It's unfortunate that it becomes so political just because it happens to be Trump. If we were looking at two businessmen, we wouldn't be having the same conversation. We'd say, look, those are two creators and they're looking to collaborate on something. And what's going to come out of it? We don't know. Is it going to be good? We don't know. Is it going to be bad? We don't know.
Well, Sarah,
so where are we like slashing people for giving it a shot? Try something.
Right. Sarah, it's a good chat. We're just out of time. Where do we find your work online?
It's stage8.com or sarahdelaine.com is my personal brand. Sarah is spelled a little differently, SERAHDLAINE. You can always Google my name. You can find anything there. And Stage 8 is STAGE and then IIX.com.
Yeah.
So, or on social media. Just hit me up, Instagram or LinkedIn.
All right. And if you're a General Hospital fan, you may recognize some of the pictures that pop up in the Google search. My mother-in-law is going to go type that in right now. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it.
You're cute. Thanks, James. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Coming up next on the James Show, we got to delve into the audio sound bites because along the lines of what I was just talking about with Sarah, Bill Maher has some sort of brand strategist ideas for Team Blue that he wishes they would adopt. And I think you'll like what you hear coming up next. This was on his show on Friday. I pulled the audio comparing the complaints of people now to the people with complaints of yesteryear. That's coming up in 4 minutes on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Tomorrow I'll be announcing the location for our next James Show listener meetup, and I do have the date already. I do have the town. It's going to be March 25th. That's a Tuesday, 7 p.m. in Plano, but where? You'll find out on tomorrow's show. Also, coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to play Dead or Alive. Now, if you're interested in trying to win these tickets to go see Santana, then you can go ahead and call up and get in line because, if the phones fill up before you call in, there's no way you could win. So if you want to go ahead and get in line for that, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. 2 tickets to see Santana April 25th at the WinStar Casino, just north of here a little bit. Bill Maher. He's been interesting to watch because he's one of the guys that we have tracked. He is on Team Blue, but he is off the reservation. He is on Team Blue, but he does not follow the script. And so it's been a curious case. This is a guy that, I don't know about you, but when I see a stand-up on its own, even the political stuff, he's a funny guy. He's legit funny. He's not going out there just insulting or politically bombing people. There's a level of clever and intellect on him, so let's give him credit for that. Now, I've been waiting to see if he makes that full Joe Rogan transition, that full Elon Musk transition, Russell Brand. We have so many of these people who were Team Blue through their youth, and they did the transition that so many people do when they get 30s, 40s, 50s. They just kind of drift over to Team Red. And I don't think Bill Maher's going to at this point. He's in his 60s or maybe even 70s at this point. So I don't think he's ever going to admit that, I guess I was wrong my entire life. Here's the way I feel now. So I think he's a guy who's just trapped in Team Blue, but still his critique of his own, the people wearing his jersey are just beautiful. This was from his HBO show where he makes fun of the beginning of the Oscars.
And finally, new rule memo to Democrats. If you ever want to win an election again, the absolute most important first step is stop doing this.
We gather in celebration of the Oscars on the ancestral lands of the Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash peoples, the traditional caretakers of this water and land.
Yeah, I don't know if we're still saying cringe. But if we are, that's this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Either give the land back or shut the up.
Right? When did we start doing that? Hey, I just wanted to say before we start this Oscar award ceremony that we're standing on stolen land. We sure are evil. Boy, the history of this country sure is flawed. Does politics have to be inserted everywhere at all times? I mean, we can't even get to the red carpet, not even past the red carpet, to the red carpet before you're confronted with politics. I can't even watch a football game without saying it takes all of us in the end zone or end racism on the back of someone's helmet. What level of propaganda does it take before you people are like, it's a little too much. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. All land is stolen land. Those people you just mentioned, they probably stole it from whatever tribe was there before we were. And what stolen land are we on? Like right now, would I have to do that? I'm sorry, you're listening to the James Show. Before we get started, I just want to say that we're operating on stolen land. This was stolen from what? Mexico? It was only Mexico for like 16 years. Well, then it was what? Spain before that? Wait, aren't they colonizers too? So we just supplanted other European colonizers and we're the bad guy? Oh, no, but before that, it was like for the Apaches or the Comanches or whatever. Yeah, well, that's because they came in and slaughtered who was before them, because the Comanches are from up in Wyoming. I've read their history. Anyway, where does this end? Dude, even if you say, well, we stole this from the indigenous Mexica people, the Mexicans. Well, they stole it from the Olmecs, and the Olmecs stole it from whoever was before that didn't write anything down or make any statues, so we don't have a record of them. But it's just such a silly exercise, and it feels so good to hear someone just stand up and be like, no, that's embarrassing. That doesn't help the cause. That's cringe.
Look, I understand the desire to right the wrongs of the past, especially when you get to take the moral high ground and then build an 8,000 square foot mansion on it. And I'm sure Julianne Hough is sincere about her love for the Chumash people, but I doubt she drives to work in a canoe. scavenges for acorns or lives in a dome house made of reeds and dried mud. That's Woody Harrelson.
Yes. Solid jokes. Solid jokes. All right, Dead or Alive is coming up next. Don't even bother calling in because the lines are full. That's why, because we're giving away Santana tickets. But if you just hang out for about 6 or so minutes, you can play along in your car, wherever you're listening at work or whatever. It'll be the 60s TV edition of Dead or Alive. How well do you know your TV stars from the top shows of the 1960s? Find out next on Dead or Alive. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What do you say we give away some Santana tickets for Dead or Alive? Hit it, Mr. Jovi. Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Jovi. Welcome to Dead or Alive. This is the James Show game show, where I'm going to list 10 celebrities. You have to tell me if they're dead or alive. Today we're playing for 2 tickets to see Santana coming to the WinStar World Casino and Resort April 25th. For the rest of us, we can get tickets at winstar.com. But on today, we're going to do the 60s TV edition. And hopefully someone's going to walk away with a couple of tickets just in the next few minutes. Now, how confident are you in your 60s TV stars and whether or not they are dead or alive? Go ahead and play along in your car. We will start. Zach and Alan, you're my first contestant on today's edition of Dead or Alive. You ready?
Yes, I am.
How old are you, Zach? Are you familiar with 60s TV?
I'm 21. Yeah.
You're 21?
Yeah, I'm watching all the late night shows.
Well, all right. Side bets. How many of y'all think Zach here is going to win Dead or Alive, the 21-year-old on the 60s? Bro, these shows would be tough for your parents. And I know that because I'm your parents' age. All right, well, I appreciate your confidence, sir. Do you even know who Santana is?
Yes, I do.
Man, this guy's incredible. All right, well, I like you already, Zach. Let's start it off. Ron Howard, he was Opie in the Andy Griffith Show. Is he dead or alive?
Very much alive.
He's alive. Oh, very much. He is confident. I like that. Elizabeth Montgomery, she was Samantha in Bewitched. Is she dead or alive?
Dead.
Not so confident there, but you were correct. The great William Shatner, Captain Kirk from Star Trek, dead or alive?
Alive.
He is alive. Still going to Comic-Cons and doing shows and documentaries. Dick Van Dyke from some show. I forgot what it's called. That's a joke, the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah. He just recently died, if I'm not mistaken.
You are mistaken, sir. He's 99 years old.
Oh.
Hey, don't be hard on him. I'm sorry, Zach, the crowd. Don't hang up. Maybe we'll cycle back around to you. I doubt it, though. Let's try Mark. Mark in Walnut Springs. How old are you? Are you familiar with 60s TV?
I'm 65. I grew up in it.
All right. Well, then you're just going to kick this one. Carol Burnett, dead or alive?
Alive.
Yep, 91 years old. Bob Denver, the rest of us know him as Gilligan. Is he dead or alive?
I believe he died.
Yep, died in 2005. Barbara Eden, Jeannie from I Dream of Jeannie. Is she dead or alive?
She's dead.
No, she's 93 years old. What happened to all that 65 talk? Hang on a second. Bill in Plano, you're next up on Dead or Alive. You only got 3 left. How old are you? Are you familiar with 60s TV?
I'm 62.
All right. Well, this should be right in your wheelhouse then, Bill in Plano.
I'm hoping.
Lisa Loring is the name of the actress. She was Wednesday in The Addams Family. Is she dead or alive?
I'm going to throw the dice alive.
Yeah. She's only 58. She's still adorable, by the way. She kind of looks like Wednesday. Burt Ward, Robin from the old Batman and Robin with, Adam West and Burt Ward. Is he dead or alive?
Dead.
No, Burt Ward's still alive, 79 years old. You're killing me, Smalls. Kenny in Springtown. Listen, bro, how old are you?
I am 37.
All you got to do is get one correct, and you're going to get the Santana tickets.
I'll do my best.
Do you know who Donna Douglas is? Do you know what character she played?
I do not.
She was Ellie Mae Clampett in the Beverly Hillbillies. Is she dead or alive?
I'm going to roll the dice on this one and say dead.
Just leaving you hanging. Nope, you're absolutely wrong. So we go back to Zach, the 21-year-old. Really? The 21-year-old? Guess what? You're my winner. Well, I know. I gave him so much crap at the beginning, but he managed to hang on and cycle through all the failed guesses of the other people. Zach and Alan, I mean, you're not just playing a joke on me here. You're going to go see Santana April 25th, WinStar World Casino?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, then this has been a success. I appreciate you playing. And those of you who played at home, this has been today's edition of Dead or Alive. All right. Well, that worked out. They don't always, Zach, don't hang up. Garrett will get your information on the break here. We'll email you the tickets to go see Santana. For the rest of us, windstar.com. I know there's more people who want to go see Santana. WinStar World Casino and Resort, April 25th, windstar.com. Coming up next, the story of a hero with a gun, fighting crime. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. For our next story, we're going to go up to Terre Haute. Is that how you pronounce it? Indiana? I've always seen it written. I'm not sure if I've ever heard anyone say it. Haute, Terre Haute, Indiana. And there's an O'Reilly store. And I don't know what this fella did to get himself banned from the O'Reillys, but he already has a restraining order, some sort of court order that he's not allowed to go into the O'Reillys. But damn it, he just has to go into the O'Reillys. All right. So what's his deal? I don't know if he's a former employee or if he's an irate customer, but he's already legally barred from going in there, and he goes in and goes straight for one employee and starts yelling at him, all according to witnesses. And I got this off bearingarms.com. And so the argument escalates. He's asked to leave. We're going to call the cops. If you don't leave, you're not allowed to be here. And, if the cops show up and you're legally barred from being there, they'll just, no questions asked, slap some cuffs on you, take you, throw you behind bars. So the irate man, customer, former employee, we don't know yet, goes out to his car and gets what looks like a gun, but this is actually an airsoft gun. Uh-oh. Do we know where this is going now? So he goes back in, and there's a dude that's working on his car in the parking lot of O'Reilly's. I know you're not supposed to do that, but he's kind of witnessing all this going on, and he has a for real gun. And so when he goes and sees this guy pull out what he thinks is a gun, and then he watches him go back into the store, and the guy points it at the employee he was arguing with. It's a real looking gun. It just happens to be an airsoft gun. And now I don't know what is in his head. The police haven't released his name, but I'm trying to fathom what is going on in his head. What does this guy think was going to happen when he walks back into the store with a plastic gun or with a fake gun, an airsoft gun? Did he expect the employee to call up the judge who said, hey, can you rescind the no trespass order? Or say, hey, I'm sorry, you can have your job back, or I'm sorry I stole your girlfriend, or whatever the grievance is. What is he going to do? Because even if he is like really mad and I want to hurt him, what are you going to do? Not even break the skin with that thing. So you just want to scare the crap out of some guy, I think is all he wanted to do, even though it resulted in him going to jail. So the illogic is just off the charts. But what happens? A guy with the gun, real gun, stops working on his car, goes into the O'Reillys, and I guess he's not a very good shot. He starts squeezing off rounds. I guess he's from a distance or something. And he just unloads his gun, but only 3 bullets hit the guy. It's not fatal wounds. He actually runs out of the O'Reillys, drives to a hospital, and he's in stable condition. Well, I think someone else drove him to the hospital, like a car was waiting on him. But I am just on the floor trying to figure out what was his plan. What was his exit strategy to pointing an airsoft pistol at an O'Reilly's employee when you already have a no trespass order? That dude, that's a good way to get yourself killed, either by a good guy with a gun or a cop or someone else at O'Reilly's. And look, you're at O'Reilly's. You are surrounded by weapons. Any other customer can just go grab a crowbar and thump him in the head while he's pointing the gun at him, or stab him with a screwdriver, or hit him with a ball hitch, like you're going to drag a hay trailer. You need to get a new ball hitch. They have those there. You can just thump someone in the head with one of those. That would knock him right out, crush his skull. What was your end game? What were you trying to accomplish? What did you think was going to happen? I love it when people do this over broken relationships. What do you think, she's going to take you back after you do that? I can't fathom the mindset. People get enraged. They do illogical stuff, but I've never seen that before. Way to go, genius. And hey, congratulations to the good guy with a gun. And on the upside, this guy didn't have to live with the stain and the pain of actually taking another life in order to diffuse this dangerous situation. But idiot got what was coming to him. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But here's a good prize. James Taylor and his all-star band are coming to Dickies Arena September 17th. Special guest Tiny Habits. You can get tickets and information at livenation.com, or you can maybe win some tickets from us. Text FIRE to 800-288-9227. FIRE to 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.